Welcome to Hoovie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube. And I have always been a huge fan of the Mercedes brand, especially used Mercedes, because unlike other European makes, these cars tend to age like fine wine instead of milk. But also the depreciation is absolutely massive, which is why I've assembled these 4 cars right here, including my latest purchase on the far right, because the 4 cars that I've assembled represent $1 million in depreciation, starting with the G55 AMG from 2007, $110,000 new that I bought for $40,000. Next to it, a 2008 Mercedes SLR McLaren, which cost over $500,000 new. This is the most expensive car I've ever purchased. It cost $275,000, a lot of money, but almost half off what it was brand new for a supercar people were saying in the same breath as the Ferrari Enzo or the Porsche Carrera GT, which are now worth millions of dollars. Next to it, a Mercedes Maybach 62 with the partition, original MSRP, $500,000, and I bought it for $40,000. So absolutely incredible depreciation here, both percentage-wise and money-wise, and my latest purchase here rounds it out. 2008 CL65 AMG, new $215,000, a twin-turbo V12 with over 600 horsepower, 90,000 miles, and I bought it for $19,000. So you add all that up, and we're well into the 900s, almost $1 million in depreciation with 4 cars from the 04 rich era or the recession rich era, where you can look like a baller on a budget. But today's video, we're going to focus on my latest purchase, the CL65, which is such an amazing car for the money. So let's start the tour. Now, Mercedes had made plenty of S-Class coupes before this, but they didn't call it the CL until the mid-90s with the 140 chassis Mercedes. They bought AMG in the mid-90s, merged it into their company, and came out with the CL55 coupe in the mid-2000s. The CL65 came a few years later for the 05 and 06 model year, but came back again in 2008 with this car right here. And when it comes to production numbers, it is a very well-kept secret how rare the CL65 is. For reference, they made a couple thousand SLR McLarens, but in total they only made about 600, 700 total CL65s. Performance as well, absolutely insane. A little over 600 horsepower on this thing compared to the SLR McLaren, which was very expensive, 617 horsepower. So they're within 15 horsepower of each other, but this one, $19,000, which compared to a Hellcat, this is a Mercedes Hellcat basically, it is half price of what you would pay for one of these with around the same miles. This one, 90,000 miles. Now the only bad spot is it does have an accident on the Carfax, not one that's really bad that has, say, airbags deployed or frame damage or that kind of stuff, but it did have a front-end accident at one point in its life. But it does drive and look really, really good, which is a big plus for Mercedes because they're so ahead of their time technology-wise that even almost 20 years later, they do look and feel very modern. And I'll show you now with a more in-depth tour. But before we get into things, the NFL playoffs are here, and I've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL, who is kicking things off with a huge offer. Throughout the playoffs, all new customers will get $200 in bonus bets instantly when they place their first $5 wager on anything. Get in on the action this weekend by downloading the DraftKings app, and don't forget to use my promo code HOOVIES. That's right, new customers who bet just $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. If that sounds too good to be true, like the car wizard turning up a bill on one of my own cars, well, just download the DraftKings app and use the promo code HOOVIES and see for yourself. Wondering what you can use your $200 in bonus bets on? Combine multiple bets together for the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. If you're already signed up for DraftKings like me, you can get a no-sweat bet. Get a bonus bet back if your same game parlay / SGPX bet doesn't hit. Max reward limits apply. If sports betting is not available in your state yet, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the chance to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code HOOVIES and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code HOOVIES only on the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. So in my opinion, this is the best looking of the CL65s. The ones after this, the nose gets a little strange looking, and the ones before, well, they look a little too generic, not quite as aggressive as this. The C63 is the tiny version of it, but I feel like this is a big bloated version of that same look that came out in the same year, 2007, 2008, and it does look very, very good. The only difference between this and a CL63 though is really the badge, at least on the outside, that bi-turbo V12, which a lot of people will put on their cars even though they don't have that. Same with the back. You see the AMG badges on non-AMG cars. They'll update it to a CL65 when it's really a 550 or a 63, and that used to bother me so much, but now Mercedes does it. They have AMGs that are 34s or whatever with little 4-cylinders that aren't hand-built by someone at AMG, much more of a large production vehicle. So Mercedes themselves are updating AMG badges. Now, I got caught in the snow, unfortunately, and got stuck trying to get it over here. And stupid me, once I got the car loose, I didn't take the tow hook off, and the little tow hook cover has fallen off into oblivion. Hopefully I can find another one of those, and thank goodness it's black, so that'll be easy to match. But about the only thing I don't like about this AMG, and something that is very 2008 or recession rich, are these chromed AMG wheels, which are starting to pit and look bad. This thing came from Florida, so it's not rusty, but that climate down there is still not good for corrosion on chrome wheels. So I'm gonna have to do something about that. But one thing I thought that was funny is the summer tires on this thing, which is the reason why I got stuck. But that helps a lot with this thing hooking up on traction, because similar to a Hellcat, all this thing wants to do is break the tires loose, over 600 horsepower. But you go inside, and this is where the CL65 looks very, very nice. You have the quilted leather interior, which has active air bladders, so when you hit a turn, these will air up and keep you glued to your seat. You see the beautiful steering wheel and dashboard as well, a couple of screens in here, but the comfort is just off the chain on this, and the quality unbelievably nice. These were expensive, $200,000, which competed with a lot of things, including Mercedes models themselves. You could get a CL550 for half that price, so they did try to make these things nicer than base Mercedes. So you have the suede headliner, full leather dash, you have the IWC clock with the AMG badging in there, and unlike BMW, you got a much more intuitive infotainment system with the knob here. This flips up James Bond style to work your phone, and you still have a lot of knobs and things to get a lot of the jobs done. Same with the climate control. Everything can be done without the screen, which I like a lot more. Now, this is a lot like a Ghost of Hoovie's video past, the 2007 S600 when it comes to features, but some of my favorites are the night vision camera system, which with this button right here, the screen will turn into your night vision. Not really necessary inside a brightly lit hangar, but at night you can see everything that's coming. And then my other favorite feature has to be the massaging seats, which have different settings. So you can go into pulse mode, choose, of course, fast and vigorous, and then you are getting a very, very nice massage. Oh, I forgot how good that is. Oh, it feels even better with 90% depreciation. This was $19,000, and you get a hand-built twin-turbo V12. Let's take a look at this thing. It is running. You can barely hear the thing. All right, up she goes, and there's the beautiful carbon fiber cover for that hand-built twin-turbo V12, built by Walter Schortz? And everything does look nice and in order here. The only thing that doesn't work is the blower motor. It'll actually work the first time you start it up and drive the car, but then after that, whatever electronic is on its way out gets heated up enough to where it quits working. I do have an error message for the collision alert system as well, which would have a little radar device in here behind the Mercedes crest. Yeah, you can peek in here and see the sonar system, so there's some sort of error with that, but otherwise the car does drive very, very nice. Feels a lot like the Maybach 62, but with a little bit less weight. This is still a very heavy car, but even more power, because this isn't the AMG version of the twin-turbo V12. It still has the very sumptuous ride, though, with the air shocks, and interesting thing going on there. Not sure if those mounts are breaking down or whatever, but you certainly don't feel it when you drive this thing. It does not feel like an old Mercedes with nearly 100,000 miles on it. So let's take it out and I'll show you. Now, we've had a bit of snow, and traction is kind of a problem with this much power and the fact that it has summer tires on it. But the nice part is I can raise up the suspension to clear, say, some of the bigger snow piles in this thing, so I haven't gotten stuck since driving to the farm and driving in a muddy spot and not being able to reverse out. But like I mentioned before, my climate control, the blower, has completely left the chat. It worked fine on the first drive on the way over here, but now that the car has been turned on a second time, I have no blower motor. So for heat, I have to rely on the heated seats and steering wheel and the massage, which is good enough. Oh, there's the snowplow. Obviously, if I need defrost and such, I need that blower, so I'll start fogging up eventually. And it's so cold that I don't want to roll the windows down, even though it is very pretty here to have a pillarless coupe where both sets of windows go down to where you have one giant open area, which helps with wind buffeting as well. But we'll eventually get out on some drier roads here, then I can show you the other thing that I love about the CL65. Oh, almost hit a hanger. So while the SLR McLaren is much like the G55 with a supercharged V8 that McLaren breathed on heavily to get it to 617 horsepower, this one, twin turbo V12, and the power is, if I can't turn the traction control off because it's too dangerous, but there we go. It's really fast, really fast. This is about the limit of tire technology right here when it comes to power on the ground. And that's why the SRT Demon and the drag pack cars come with slicks in another box. So you can do a sub 10-second quarter mile or 2.5 seconds 0 to 60. Now, just from my experience with these cars, it does seem like it does need motor mounts. There's a little bit more resonance coming through the car, where when the rubber breaks down, you can just feel the engine a little bit more than you should, but most people wouldn't notice. Now, the ride, absolutely fantastic on this thing, but you can change everything. Right now, it's in sport on the shifts, but we can certainly tighten things up with the flick of a button and make this thing handle, well, not bad considering how massive of a vehicle it is. This will never be a track car, but a bruiser, sort of like a muscle car from the golden era of the late 60s, where they couldn't take a turn all that well, but they were really stinking fast. And now we're back on the horrible taxiway where this thing struggles to make it back to the hangar. Now, I do have a car that is very similar to this. Oh, I'm gonna dodge those. And that is the 2005 Bentley Continental GT that I recently purchased. And it has some pluses and minuses compared to the CL65. And I have decided that I'm going to keep only one. I'm going to go through and sort out both of them and then decide which one I'm going to keep after they've been all sorted out. So there can only be one. Let's park them next to each other and compare. So one big plus over the CL65 with the Bentley Continental GT is this has all-wheel drive, unlike rear-wheel drive. So being out in the snow, this would do a lot better, but it also makes it hook the power up better with less horsepower. So this one over 600 horsepower, this one 50 horsepower less out of its twin-turbo W12, but the 0 to 60 on the two cars is very similar. A slight edge to the V12 bi-turbo, but you wouldn't expect that considering it has so much more power, but they are actually pretty close. The Bentley also has a bit more presence, a bit more fanciness than the CL65, which looks like a normal S-Class until you look at the badge. But interior-wise, the Mercedes is nicer. It does look a lot more modern, even though this one does have similar features. This one, though, a leather headliner instead of suede, but still leather dash, quilted leather interior, very nice wood, but it does look kind of Volkswagen-y in its buttons and shifter in other ways as well. It's also very British, unfortunately, so I left it outside for a couple of weeks in the rain, and well, the passenger floor mat got wet and mold started growing on it. So that's what this bottle is, and everything out here drying out. So that's fun and something that needs to be figured out, along with the other things that are broken on this Bentley, the airbag lights, a few leaks and things. And that's another nod that I would give to the Mercedes, because I think these would be much easier to keep running. Not only are parts more readily available, it's easier to work on than the very cramped quarters of the Bentley Continental GT. Price-wise, I did have to pay a little bit more for the Bentley, but it does have lower mileage. This one, $30,000. So the CL65, once again, I get a lot more bang for the buck with, and it is something that's much more familiar to me in my wheelhouse. So we'll see. Next up is getting it inspected at the Car Wizards, and then we can compare that to the Bentley as well, how hard it's going to be to get these things back into top form. Thank you so much for watching.